Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. So yeah, Bruce leaves today, and we've got the first weekend of the spring showcases this weekend. We have our client appreciation. We have a happy hour Thursday. I mean, it's like everything that's going on, and I'm like, oh, and you're not going to be here to help. That's perfect, because the spring showcase is like 5 straight hours
Oh,
on Saturday
yeah.
and 5 hours on Sunday, and uh,
Yeah.
I had years of not doing that, and it was such a nice break, and now we're back to doing it. And it's
Oh,
like, it's not my
yeah.
favorite thing, but
No kidding. Good way to meet people, though.
yes, 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 yes.
Mhm.
Well, I'm not sure, and I'm not getting a text from Kim. I'm hoping she is on. Don't know where. No call. Okay. Kim Taylor, are you on? And I just can't see you. Hmm. Okay. I'm recording this because a lot of people, unfortunately, there's a couple different things going on this morning that are conflicting with our time frame. So our local association has got something happening with a class. And then I think there's something in the metro area. So a lot of our other metro area agents are attending that. So we'll record this. We may not have as many people tuned in this morning, but we'll record this and then we'll post it so that they can watch it, as I've gotten a lot of requests. I'm really not sure where Kim Taylor is. She's the second part of our guest speaker, but we'll start with Barbara this morning. So Barbara Woyak, thank you very much for joining us. I am, try to come up with some diverse topics for these Empire Masterminds, just to obviously make us all a little bit more aware of what's out there, the designations that we'll talk about today, things changing in our industry. So today we have a really, I think, a very interesting and needed topic. So we have a guest host this morning, Barbara. Barbara has been in the business since 2005, and she's a resident over by UPAM. She's in the Phoenix Scottsdale area, and she's been there since 1990. She has extensive experience and knowledge in that community, which obviously is a huge asset for her clients. She also has an MBA from Clark University and specialized in marketing and consumer behavior. And I bet that is a huge help when you're dealing with your clients, and especially in this topic that we're going to be talking about with divorce. So Barbara is a certified divorce real estate expert, a CDRE, and their goal is to transform the collaboration of real estate and family law professionals so that every divorcing couple is ensured of the best possible outcome when they're obviously dealing with the tangled mess of legal and financial and emotional ties when it comes to selling their property. Barbara is also a member of Keller Williams Luxury Division, and she's the tour chair of the Scottsdale Luxury Home Tour. She also has some other designations. She's a certified luxury home marketing specialist. She is a certified negotiation expert. She is a GRI, a Graduate Real Estate Institute, and an accredited buyer's representative. So, my friend Barbara, you have got some chingling designations attached to you. You have been in the business a long time, and we are so very happy to have you this morning. So, what we wanted to do is, I'm just going to turn it over to Barbara. I've made you a co-host in case there's anything that you want to share or do, in regards to your screen. But maybe you can just start and talk to us a little bit about the designation, how you learned about it, and why you decided to get that designation and what it's meant for your business.
Sure. So, I mean, I did put together a little presentation that'll probably answer all of those questions.
Perfect.
So, if you want, I can share my screen and then we
Awesome.
can dive into it. And then, if you still have questions, we can answer all the questions. All right. So, are you seeing my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, this is all about the family law niche, how I get into it, and what you can do if you decide that this is a niche for you. It is can be very emotional because the family that you're working with typically is in high emotion when it comes to, I mean, it's very emotional when you're selling your home anyway, but add in a divorce on top of it, and it can get kind of crazy sometimes. So it might look like I'm looking up. It's just because I have my bigger monitor and my presentation is on my monitor. So these are the things that I thought we would cover today. Number one, like, what is a CDRE? 5, if you decide that you want to get into the divorce niche, 5 things that you should do, 5 ways that you can get in with family law attorneys, how to deal with divorces, what we do as far as teaching, continuing education to our attorneys, and a little bit about what that program looks like for me. So real quickly then, what is a certified divorce real estate expert? And so I did this program. I was in the very first class that was taught through this organization, and that was in 2018. Why I decided to do it is because, as you mentioned, I was the tour chair for the luxury home tour. And as we would tour homes every month, everybody goes through the house, and we'd get into the master bedroom and look in the master closet and see that there was only clothing for him or for her. And right away, everybody said, oh, this must be a divorce. And so a lot of people would treat a divorce listing as if it was a distress sale. And I also met with a lot of clients. I had, since I've been doing this for a long time, during the last downturn in the economy, I had a lot of clients that were losing their home to short sale or foreclosure, and also going through a divorce. So I just always had it in my heart to be able to help them. And then when I heard about this program, I jumped on it right away, and I thought, well, this is how I can learn more. As a real estate professional, been in the business for a long time, I'm like, well, anybody can do a divorce listing, right? It's not that different, but it is. It's a lot different. A lot of the questions that you need to ask to make sure that if there's court orders and things like that, that we're following those. So what is this program? So it's a 3-month class. It's basically it's we call it learn and launch. So it's 2 months worth of learning, and then it also teaches. Then there's also a 1-month business development mentorship. So in a lot of these designations, they get you your designation, they teach you the basics, and then they leave it up to you to figure out how to implement it. This program is a little bit different in that it also gives you the keys, the techniques, and the marketing collateral to be able to do business development and establish relationships with the attorneys. It's a pretty intense program. So if you already have a super, super busy business, you're going to have to figure out a way to fit this into it. Right now, I spend at least 20% of my time working in this niche, and this represents about 48% of my business right now. So it wasn't always that way the first couple of years. I just had 1 or 2 transactions here or there. And then last year, it really exploded. So only about 10% of the people that are accepted. And that's because a lot of people apply for the program when they don't necessarily meet the minimum criteria. And they do want people, they only accept people into the program if you have experience as a real estate professional first. So you have to have at least 45 closed transactions and have been in the business for at least 3 years. And the other thing about this program is because of the way we do the marketing to the attorneys, they only allow so many agents in a given area. We don't want 100 CDREs marketing to the same attorneys. So it is that we do have area limitations. So what are some things that you should do right now regarding divorce? Well, the first thing is stop disclosing divorce sales. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier is on that luxury tour, we could go in and we could tell if the home was a divorce situation just because of the way it was set up. You could see that there were probably family photos, and like his anything that has his picture in it has been removed and all the other photos are still up. Or part of the sometimes when one of the parties moves out, they take a bunch of the furniture with them, so it kind of looks like, you know, there's only maybe half the family room furniture, or one of the bedrooms is vacant, or one of the closets only has clothes in it and the other closet doesn't. So what we want to do is make sure that we're helping our clients make it not look like a divorce sale. Some programs suggest that you reach out, you can go to your divorce listing or filings are public information. So I know there's some programs that you recommend you go and get these lists and then reach out directly to the couples. I'm telling you that's a really bad idea, because sometimes there is orders of protection in place, and maybe one of the parties doesn't realize that there is a divorce proceeding that has been started. And if the first place they learn that from you is not going to go down well, and it probably might not go down well for the party that has filed the initial request to have a divorce. So please don't reach out to people. Number one, and the other thing is it's way too early. When they first file, they haven't even thought about what they're going to do with the house. And a lot of times it might be a year or more into the divorce process that they finally figure out what they're going to do with the house. So you're just going to be way too early. The other thing that a lot of these programs do is tell you to send an email or a mailing to a family law attorney. That's fine. We do some of that as well, but then they do it once and then they never do it again. And I can tell you the family law attorneys, when they get those letters in the mail, they just throw them in the trash. So you're just wasting your time unless you figure out the right way to do it. So that's the same thing with sending communication to the attorneys. If you do get assigned a case, the attorneys, every time you reach out to them, they're going to charge the client for their time. So they hire us because we're the experts, and we need to keep all the real estate related issues out of the attorney's hands, because that's why they want a certified expert to be able to help them. They don't want to become the real estate professional. They don't want to do the negotiation. They want you to do it for you. And then the other thing is stop introducing yourself as a realtor. A lot of real estate professionals go up to attorneys and say, "Hey, I'm a real estate agent. I can help you with your divorce cases." Well, we're presenting ourselves as divorce real estate experts. And that's what you want to be able to do to these attorneys. They love education. So the more education you can share with them is how you'll get on the good side of an attorney. So what can you do to get in with attorneys? Well, you can join local bar associations. Many bar associations will allow you to join. And then they send you the notices of all the events that they have going on, and you can join those. A lot of times they have happy hours or different events that you can join. There's other divorce groups out there that you can join, collaborative groups, mediation groups. There's clubs and things like that. And then you can also ask your sphere for an introduction to an attorney and get introduced that way. So divorce listings then and now. So in the past, we might get divorce listings from our sphere or from regular marketing, or they might Google you. As a divorce real estate expert, most of the divorce listings that I get are because I've been assigned to the case through the court. So I've let the attorneys know that I am an expert. And I have a CV. So if you decide you want to get into this niche, that's one of the things that you're going to need to do is put together a CV or a resume, because that's how they present your information to the court as the expert. So I get assigned to most of my cases through the court, or the attorneys will submit my name to the court to be appointed. So that's the second one, is having your names submitted for what it's called a marital settlement agreement in some states. And that's where the attorneys will recommend you to their client, so that you can get appointed to the case that way.
So
And
Barbara,
again,
I just
yeah.
was going to interrupt you if I could just for a second. So
Yeah.
if you're appointed, does that mean basically they have to use you as their real estate agent, or okay, so that's a
Yep,
good
that's
clarification.
exactly what it means. So
Okay.
you get a document from the court that says, in the matter of the parties, whether that some places call it the parties, other states call it the petitioner and the respondent. In the matter of whatever their name is, the court appoints your name as in some states it's called an expert. Like in California, it's called a 730 expert, and so it's different in different states. In my state, it's called a real estate special commissioner. So they'll appoint you as a real estate special commissioner. It gives you a lot of control over the transaction, because if the parties aren't agreeing, like let's say one of them's not allowing showings, well, I can use the fact that the court has appointed me to get them to cooperate. And if they don't cooperate, then it has to go back to we can put it back to the court, and that person can get sanctioned. In other words, they can get fined for not cooperating.
Okay.
So one of the big things with this particular program that's way different from other programs is we're all about educating our family law community. And the more education, the more value we can provide to our family law community, the more they see and want to be able to use us. So when we have a whole program that we have set up, a presentation that we get certified through the local bar association to be able to provide what's called CE, or continuing education credit, to our attorneys. So again, they don't want to be sold to, they want to be educated, and they need to be educated. A lot of them, believe it or not, we think that they're attorneys and they know everything, but they don't know real estate law. They know family law, but not necessarily real estate law. And that's where this program comes in, and it kind of teaches us the overlap between family law and real estate law. So again, it is approved through our bar association, and it's on topics that the attorneys need to know about. For example, what's going on in your market, and how might that impact their cases? A lot of times one of the parties might want to do a buyout of the other, but because the prices have gone up so much and with the interest rate so high, maybe they can't afford to do it, or maybe it takes a lot longer for a home to sell now. So if in the court order it says the home's to be sold in 30 days, well, that doesn't give you a whole lot of time. And the only way you could do that would be probably to lower the price a lot to be able to and sell it more as a distress sale. So we want to educate our attorneys and let them know what's typical now, what should they expect when we've been assigned a case to sell the home, how long should they expect it to take. The other thing is you can't change the content, because the content is actually approved by the state for continuing legal education credit. So if you change anything except for like market statistics, then you would have to get it reapproved. And so the Alumni Institute does that for us. So our job is just to go out and present to the attorneys. So this is a good way, and I did like 12 of these last year. And this is when my business really started exploding, is when I started doing these continuing, we call them a lunch and learn. these classes for our attorneys. So what does my class look like? You know, basically what I have on there is what current market trends, how we can sell a home with one party on title. So as real estate professionals, we know that our fiduciary responsibility is to the titled property owner, but that doesn't mean the other person that's not on title does not also have an equitable interest. So how do we deal with their equitable interest while we're dealing with the party that's on title? So we have to cover all those things. Post-divorce title issues. What's the best way to transfer title to the new spouse if they're going to be retaining the property? Some verbiage to use in their court orders when they're assigning us. In my the template for assigning me as a real estate special commissioner, there was a line item in there that said that I had to market the property in the MLS as court approval required. Well, if I do that, I'm putting that home on notice to everybody that this is potentially a distressed sale. And so I've had them take that out of there. So just knowing those things. And then obviously we talk about how to appoint me as a family law expert. So that's basically it. If you have specific questions, I would love to be able to answer them for you.
So I have one more again, just to reiterate. Yeah. If once you become a CDRE, are you automatically a member of this alumni institute?
So once you get your designation, if you choose to continue with the program, we call it Master Club. And okay. In Master Club, we is where we do the continuing legal education class. Alumni does one for our attorneys and allows us to invite our attorneys to that. And we also do, we have a class every single week. We do case studies, we do business development, we do accountability, and then we just have one where people can ask questions. We have listing support. So all those things are provided to us. Nice,
nice. Anybody have questions for Barbara? Let me just check the chat here on to make sure I'm not missing anything from that. Oh, is Scottsdale area at full capacity for CDREs?
Yes.
Okay. And how would you find out? So, you know, Pam's in the area. If she wants to become one at one point in time, how does she find out if there's an opening or the ability to do that?
So if you go to alumniinstitute.com, you can request an initial interview with our intake person, and he'll tell you if your area is already at capacity. So okay. I know, I think Denver's at capacity. I think Houston's at capacity. I think Phoenix area is, there's parts of San Diego, parts of LA are, so it just depends on your area.
Okay. And I know that Rochelle in our metro area, she's also a CDRE and she's been on our calls from time to time here. So, you know, she's a local contact here for us in Minnesota. Certainly, you know, as Barbara said, you can reach out to her or you can contact the Alumni Institute for more information as well. Any other questions for Barbara on her certification and how she uses it or obtained it? Awesome. Well, thank you, my dear. That was great information.
You're welcome.
I took some notes as we were talking. So I'm, one thing I was curious when you were talking about having maybe one of the parties that doesn't want to maybe cooperate or be good with showings. Have you ever come across any like security issues from your standpoint of, you know, being in a situation where you were concerned for yourself or your safety?
Yes.
Okay. And how did you handle that?
You have heard horror stories of like crazies that get mad at everybody. We had one in our area several years ago where this guy, he was divorced and he went to his wife's attorney's law office and killed two people. And then he killed, they had a forensic psychologist that testified against him. He killed him. Then he killed another guy, and then he went to try and get money from some friends, and when they wouldn't help him, they killed. So he ended up killing like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, and they finally tracked him down, and then he killed himself. So
Oh my
yeah, I
God.
mean, you have to be careful. One of the things that you need to be aware of if you're going to do divorce cases is there an order of protection in place? And if there is, there's additional ways of being able to show the property to make sure that you protect the person, especially if it's that we call it the in-spouse, the person that's living in the house. If the in-spouse has the order of protection against the out-spouse, then we can't just hang a lockbox on there and allow anybody to do showings anytime they want. So, we might have to do extra things like, install a Ring doorbell and verify who's at the property so that the spouse can't get into the property without authorization. Because if they do, number one, they're violating a court order and they can get arrested and thrown in jail, which I'm dealing with that right now in one of my cases is he did that. So he got thrown in jail and now they have to kick him out of the house before we can actually list the house. So
Wow.
it's,
Yeah.
I mean, it can be very, very rewarding to be able to help people that are just going through a horrible time in their life, but it can also be kind of stressful as well. So you just
Absolutely.
have to be able to deal with that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think sometimes we get these designations and they're good and they help us in our business, but I truly believe this is one of those designations where you really are an expert in this situation and you really have to be on top of your game in regards to not necessarily knowing the laws. I mean, that's why you're collaborating with the law professionals, but I think to just really be at a high level, when you're working with these specialized clients. So kudos to you. And certainly if anybody else is interested in, that designation, Barbara's a great resource for you guys to reach out to. So awesome. If anybody else have any other questions for Barbara, otherwise I'm going to turn it over to Kim. Okay. Well, thank you, Barbara. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Our second co-host, and Kim, I've made you a co-host too as well. So I don't know if you have anything to share online, or if you don't, that's great. But let me give you a little background. Kim Taylor, I have known Kim for years. She is a local lender here in the Rochester, Minnesota area. She works for Home Federal Savings Bank. She is known for her thoroughness, her creativity when it comes to lending. She will go above and beyond and explore all of the options that are available for her clients, so that she can give them the most personalized, experience and results. Since starting in the mortgage industry in the late 1990s, she continues to enjoy helping her clients position themselves in the best scenario that works for them. She also has a passion to educate their clients going through a divorce, and planning to, help them qualify for what their next step is in life, right? Whether it's going out on their own, and just making the best decisions, obviously, as they're going through that transition. So I will, without further ado, turn it over to Kim to now tell us a little bit more about what the lending side looks like as a certified divorce lender. So thank you, Kim, for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Kelly. I had some IT issues that I thought were handled last evening, but weren't.
No worries.
But I'm here. Good morning, everyone. I am coming from the perspective of the lending side of it. And originally when I started, I had always kind of had a passion for helping people in unique circumstances, figuring out creative financing options to do things. A few years ago, I ended up going through my own personal divorce, and was really taken aback at just the steps in general when you go through this process as in your personal life, and how much that can affect every little piece of that divorce. So I was out in California shortly after my divorce, and I think I had had so much Googling on my phone about the topic of divorce and certain things that I was looking up, that a certified divorce lender had popped up on my Facebook feed from that local area. And I was like, well, geez, I never ever knew I could get certified for this. So after a few years settled, I started looking into the certification finally, kind of got my stuff together. And when it slowed down a little bit last year, I started my designation to get certified as a certified divorce lender. It's a little bit, I'm in a little bit less, I would say, informal scenario. This is a piece that I've just really started working on and marketing. One reason I got into it was my passion. Two was to be able to just educate people. And a lot of times it's more in just the education up front, if they're maybe thinking about getting a divorce, but don't really have that belief in themselves that they can get their housing figured out, get this, the equity all split. I kind of come in as, we can do this. Let's figure this out. Let's go through options. And in a sense, I'm kind of a cheerleader for them. There's, if you're in a stable job and you've got good equity built up over the years, and you come into a situation where you're, splitting up that joint equity, there's a lot of different options that we can look at to help you out. So the first piece that I really focus on, I kind of call the discovery stage, because that is such a key piece that starts off a borrower or a client that comes into me, gets them thinking and gets them asking more questions. And typically after that kind of first discovery meeting with my clients, they will leave going, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about all this. So a lot of times I'll just pull a credit report just right out the gate. Let's, talk about the basics. I take some notes. I pull their credit report and we go through each one of their liabilities on their credit report so they can see exactly what it is, what the balance is. Maybe they need to reflect back on when this account was opened. Many times they don't know that there's certain things on there, or maybe they're on it because they're on it jointly with a spouse. Maybe there's been, a disclosure thing that they're on it. They didn't even know they were on it. A lot of times the balances are a lot higher than they think. So this allows them that concrete, detailed information that they might not have had to go back and open discussion at their table, so to speak, with who's going to be taking what and how that's all going to be divvied out. So that is a big piece of it, is the liabilities, not just the home mortgage that they currently have, but all of those other smaller items that definitely can add up. From a lending perspective, when we're talking about all of those liabilities, it's kind of a gray area, and that varies lender to lender. But when there's a court-ordered liability for one spouse or one party to take a certain liability, initially we need to, some lenders are going to say, okay, the court order says your husband, ex-husband to be, is taking this home. You're going to be taken off of it eventually. Now let's get you pre-qualified so that we can exclude that payment. Some lenders will say, yep, we can exclude that with just that recorded divorce decree. But there are a few out there that are a little bit stricter, and they want that actual full removal of the party keeping the house done.
That's a good point, Kim. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think from our perspective, when we're working with clients, and they do mention that they're going through a divorce, and they say, oh, my husband's going to get the house, so he gets the house payment. That's not always the way it works. It's not that easy. Right.
Yeah, and by Fannie Mae's standards, if it's court ordered that that spouse is going to take the home and they haven't, quote, refinanced it out of the other one's name yet or removed them, we should technically be able to exclude that payment just with the court order. But there's always, little loopholes and add-ons and caveats that every lender has the option of doing that. That also, not just the mortgage, but that also goes for liabilities. So technically, according to, secondary market guidelines, if you bring you're finalized in your divorce, your ex-spouse is taking the house and taking one of the cars and then all of the credit cards, we should be able to exclude it. If it's a clean deal, credit's good, they've held everything together. Typically we can exclude that and we should be able to. So if it's court ordered, it can be excluded in most cases. But
what about if it's not court ordered? What if they're not quite there and it's not finished and nothing's beneficial?
If it's not court ordered, or if they're in the process, which is usually when I'm seeing them, they are coming in, they've kind of started that process of divorce. They've had that conversation with their significant other of who's going to be taking what and what their intents are if they want to keep the house and how that all looks. So usually they kind of have it figured out. If we can't include the debts that ex-spouse is taking, I usually try to go always the most conservative route because I'm a lender. So I'm extremely tight and conservative. So I usually try to do everything I can to include the debt that's on there. And that will kind of determine at what point they can close or what point I can have that mortgage loan closing. It just depends on if they qualify or not with it. With that mortgage piece, I'm going to circle back around. With the mortgage piece, it's very, very important. And I'm sure this is all kind of state specific too. I'm in Minnesota, but it's very important. And a lot of people don't understand that just because if you do a quit claim deed, that takes them off of the title. And Barbara, you can probably attest for this also, but there's two pieces to that loan. There's the mortgage note, and then there's the legal side of it, which is the title and the deed. So just because you're quit claiming someone off of a deed because you're divorced, now you take them off of that deed with a quick recording, that doesn't mean that you're getting taken off of the responsibility of promising to pay the mortgage that you signed jointly on. There are a couple other steps for the spouse that's keeping the home that you would want to do, or more so, I guess, for the spouse that's not keeping the home, in making sure that you're off of that liability responsible payment wise. The only way to get off of a mortgage or a promissory note is to do a full refinance or sell the house. Both parties sign off on the sale. And then there's one other option that a lot of people don't go to. I think it's phenomenal because and that's a loan assumption. So a lot of loans are assumable. Typically, if it's a secondary market, conventional financing or an FHA loan, you are most likely going to be able to go to the current lender that your loan is serviced with, let them know that you have a finalized divorce decree, and it's a court order that you remove your ex-spouse from this home. What that does on an assumption, instead of doing a full refinance and starting a brand new loan, is it allows the person keeping the house to keep the loan that they have in place. That's a big deal because of the interest rates. We're in a much higher, not much higher, but we're in a higher mortgage rate or piece right now. Whereas if they refinanced a house or bought a house 5 years ago, they could very well be in that low 3 or 2%, high 2% range. And now they're looking at 6.5 for a rate. And holy cow, what a difference that makes in payments and how much the person keeping the house can qualify for. So by doing an assumption, I'm saying I'm going to keep this mortgage loan and I want to take the spouse off of it. And what we do as a lender in our loan servicing department is we do qualify you in full, just like it would be for a regular refinance. So we're going to make sure that you can carry that payment individually on your own. And then with that court ordered document, after we've qualified you to be able to carry that payment, we can remove that ex-spouse. That scenario has to be completed divorce situation because it's a court ordered document, but it allows the borrower keeping the house to keep that loan that they have, keep that low interest rate. It may be already fit into what their financial budget is. And
How
that's a
would we
really nice
know? How would we know, Kim, if if they have that opportunity, if it's assumable?
You would have them call their lender, and look at it. There's definitely some lenders that don't like doing assumptions. But again, when it's a really, I don't hate to say this, clean borrower scenario, that's an excellent option. Just cut and dry, gets the second person off of it. Their responsibility is clear. They move on and can purchase another home. One pitfall with that is you can't take cash out because you're just assuming that existing loan. So there's not any opportunity in that particular transaction to obtain equity payouts. So we get creative at that point and say, well, what do we need to figure out to keep this loan for you? And then how are we going to finance your equity payout, or what are some options we can throw on the table for you to get that money paid out to that ex-borrower now? So that is an assumption. So basically you have your refi, sell the house, or an assumption to get that ex-spouse off of the note, and then they can go on and purchase another home with you as realtors. So keeping that timeline and open communication. A lot of the divorces, that's exactly the situation, is one person's keeping the house, the other one's moving on. A common mistake that I've always ran across is that a lender, if you have to do that full refinance to requalify, maybe you're dropping that loan payment down, taking some equity out of the house to keep it and get that ex-spouse off of the loan, that equity payout can be done as a limited rate and term refinance versus a cash out refinance. So the difference is a cash out refinance, you're going to have a higher interest rate because there's secondary market markups on the rate if you're taking equity out of a home. If you're doing just a rate and term refinance, you can take equity out to pay out an ex-spouse without it being considered a cash out refinance with secondary market. So it keeps that interest rate a little lower. And is one little loophole that we have in the secondary market. In that scenario, you have to have your divorce decree finalized, and it should say something like ex-spouse is to receive, $70,000 in equity payout within 6 months of the divorce recording, or 3 months are required to refinance. But if it's in the divorce decree as a required payout, we don't have to add that cash out hit to the interest rate. That seems to be the biggest thing that I'm seeing is the rate difference, because what the rates were years ago, the last few years, and what they are now, even though they're historically still under what the average is. It's a tricky step when you're doubling your interest rate. Essentially, it's a lot more, out of pocket qualifying wise. So that's a little sneak caveat that a lot of people don't use. Going past the liability part, if we want to look at the income piece of it, is another side of it for qualifying. We can use for qualifying you, or as a new borrower coming in, let's say that the person that's let's say they sell the home and split the equity, everything's all good to go. They've got their equity in the savings account, and now the borrower comes in, they want to be pre-qualified to buy a new house. Maybe they've only worked part-time the last few years while they're raising family. So we want to look at, okay, well, are you going to be getting child support? Are you going to be receiving alimony? So we can definitely use child support and alimony in qualifying a borrower for a new home. couple caveats. It needs to be received consistently for 6 months. So if you're getting $8,000 a month in alimony from your ex, we need to show that you've got 6 months receiving that alimony and then something legal in writing. So whether it's a separation agreement that's finalized or a decree that's finalized, we need to have something legally written as well as the evidence of 6 months of receipt of that money. And then the other catch is that we have to show that it's going to continue for 3 years. So with the child support piece, the first thing I always do is I look at how old are the children, what are their ages, what are their birth dates, and then how long does the decree state they're going to be receiving that child support. So if you have let's say a borrower that has 2 children and they're receiving, let's say, $2,000 a month for child support, but one of the children is going to be 17 or 16 years old, most of the time it quits when they're 18. So we wouldn't have that 2 or full 3 years to be able to verify that continuance of that income. So in one of the children, or one of that alimony or child support rather, would be cut in half at that point. So we could only use it for the younger child, not necessarily the older child, for income qualification. So keeping an eye on ages of the kids, how long it's going to be moving. So there's all kinds of little caveats and loopholes around that. But really what it comes down to is sitting down with the borrower and talking through options, trying to make suggestions for them to think outside the box. And then just kind of throwing all that information and knowledge on the table, making sure that they have understand as well as they can what we're throwing on the table. And then they can take that information, go home, talk with their family, talk with their advisors, talk with their attorneys, their financial advisor, whoever it is, to take all those little tidbits and see what's going to work best for them in their scenario. So load up with information and make the best decision for you, bringing in all these professionals into it.
So Kim, there's a question from Troy. He said, is there any way around the 6-month receipt requirement? For example, could the ex advance 6 months support to get off the mortgage?
So a spouse could advance alimony, because a lot of times, like, alimony is paid in a lump sum versus monthly payment, or a scheduled monthly payment. So we can use a lump sum, and again, making sure it would be able to go through for 3 years, or splitting that up over 3 years. We could definitely use that. It kind of making sure it's a really pretty clean scenario. When it gets sticky is when there's a lot of inconsistency or maybe past credit hiccups that can kind of sticky things up a little bit, and then we need to get a little more creative. But lump sums, yeah, we can split that up and use that.
Troy, I'm not sure if I understand the second part of your question, where it says to get you off the mortgage. So maybe if you can clarify that.
Yeah, we're working through an assumption agreement with one of my clients, and she's kind of between a rock and a hard spot, because she needs 6 months of child support to prove what you just said. But unless he's willing to advance it, my question is there a way that could be structured so we could avoid that 6-month wait period?
Typically, well, you could see if there's any portfolio options for that, client to look at doing, where, like, we have at my bank, and one of the reasons why I work at this institution here is we have a lot of portfolio on the book products. But I'm guessing kind of what you're running into, Troy, is a secondary market issue, because majority of our loans are, across the nation. I've done lending in multiple states. We're going to try to fit under that umbrella of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, or the Federal Housing Administration, or veterans. So it would have to be something that there was the ability to have a loophole on, like a portfolio loan of some sort. And then there would need to be a lot of compensating factors to offset or substantiate that. But that 6-month receipt of or requirement is pretty
Stringent.
Pretty black and white. Yep. You
Okay.
could do the lump sum, but again, each lender is specific in what they want to use.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Kim? So Kim, when you got your certification, like what do you believe the biggest value was for you when you decided to go down that route?
Well, the course that I went through, the designation that I went through, really for me, it brought me back to, there was a ton of training on building rapport with your client and finding the way, you know, how do they communicate so that I can mirror that. So are they visually stimulated people? If they are, they want to see a lot of stuff printed out and we go through it, you know, in front of us with it printed out step by step. If they're an auditory stimulated person, we want to talk things through. They're maybe not going to do as good if I show them a list of items or a breakdown of something on paper. They want to talk it through. I'm a talker myself, which is why I'm in sales. But just kind of trying to mirror how they learn and how they communicate is really important.
Do you learn about the emotional aspect?
The emotional aspect is, you know, making sure I've been learning, and the more I get into it, it's so much about that teamwork. So you can get certified. There's so many different professions that you can get this certification in. So you could be a financial advisor that is certified in divorce. You could be the real estate side of it, the realtor, the lender, and even an accountant can be certified in divorce accounting. So if we build that team up around us so that we always have these resources to refer people to, that's such a big piece of it for me. Is I don't know all the answers, but I'm going to figure out who does, and then I'm going to connect you with that person to make sure that you're getting this piece of it done correctly, that you're splitting up that asset correctly. And of course, the attorneys always are phenomenal in doing that as well. But a lot of times people want to go into a divorce and try to self-source it. So there's just a lot of resources I think that we can provide, tips, ideas, thinking outside the box. The emotional part of it is always really tricky. I always try to tell people, let's just fake it till we make it and get this done. And you'll be happy once it's done. But everything, you know, you got to keep everything, keep the knowledge, keep it all professional, you know, try to advise the clients to maintain their professionalism and that there's a reason for that with their spouse. Communicate effectively. This isn't, you know, just kind of keeping everything on the download to get things wrapped up and completed. You're at my office and in my seat for a reason. We got to get there. Let's get to that end point together. And I can encourage people to do their best. You know, don't let that bother you. Let's skip that and move on. We got to get to the end zone here. So, but it can get so sticky. They can be really smooth and amicable, which makes it nice sometimes because it allows both parties a little more flexibility. But it can get extremely contentious. And a lot of stuff comes up in that discovery stages, not only from the lending aspect, but from the real estate aspect, everything. There's always a couple of surprises that pop up.
So just you have to be part counselor.
Yeah. Can I just give a plug to Kim and the other CDLPs that are out there? If you're working with divorcing clients, I always recommend that before they get into their settlement agreements with their divorce attorney, that they talk with the lending professional, whether they want to do a buyout or if they want to sell the home and buy something else. Because if they talk with Kim first, they can come up with options that they can then use in their settlement agreement. If they settle everything, then all of a sudden their options are going to be much more limited. Kim can figure out a way, what do they need to do to be able to qualify? I mean, maybe their kids are older, and they're only going to be getting a year's worth of child support. But maybe that can be offset with more a longer term spousal maintenance agreement. And that way they can qualify. So I would say if you're working with people that are going through a divorce, the first thing you want to do is figure out what they want to do and then set them up with someone like Kim so that she can help them figure out what options might work best for them.
Great advice. Yeah, I think having that team of experts as your network or your resource is really what you need in these delicate situations for sure. And the fact that the rest of us who aren't certified in that, we may just not even know how to navigate that as well as somebody who is clearly in the know, like Barb and Kim. So definitely, don't be afraid. Like, as a real estate agent, I know that if I were in that situation, I would be reaching out to Barb, or I'd be reaching out to Rochelle here in our area to kind of, help and use them as a resource, because this is something that is not only emotionally tricky, but legally tricky. And we certainly don't want to be the attorneys. We always have been told that we are not real estate. We're not agents or attorneys. We're only real estate agents. So we don't want to act like we know the law, but we need to be in the hands or the resources of the people who do know those answers. So awesome.
And the lender has whatever lender you're working with, they've got that ability to request a complete profile of everything that this client's done. I can ask for assets of, multiple different assets. I can ask for income. I can, we get everything in their life on our desk. So we're a good starting place because we're going to get a whole picture. If the lender's doing their job and digging in. I'm a little bit of an overdigger, and I like to look at college plans and future finances and how this is going to fit in. So, but we're getting their entire life on our desk in front of us. So it's a really good place to start with that discovery stage.
Awesome.
Definitely with the lender.
Any other questions for Kim or Barb, you guys? No? Well, this has been some really good information. I actually took a bunch of notes. I learned a few things, and lots of times I think that I know everything, because I've been doing this so long. So thanks to both of you for sharing your knowledge and your expertise. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad that this is recorded so that we will post this in the Empire Facebook group for anybody who was unable to join us this morning. Any parting last words before we say goodbye for the day?
Happy spring, and thank you all for joining.
Yes. Well, thank you both again very much. I appreciate both of you, and everybody have a great rest of your day and enjoy this warm weather.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.